Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenny Montgomery. Thanks so much for joining us as we meet some very interesting women in the next half hour. We'll talk with the executive director of the Augusta Museum of History, a famous figure in Augusta history, but that's a surprise, and a woman who has spent much of her adult life doing what she says others wanted her to do. But now she's living her best life with a passion and a hobby that's just for her. Jan Hodges Burch is a familiar face to many different groups in the CSRA. She grew up in Trenton, South Carolina on her family's peach farm, went to Wardlaw Academy, and graduated from the University of Georgia with a bachelor's degree in interior design. But Jan's career and her life interests have grown in so many directions. It is so nice to have Jan in the studio with us today. And Jan, I told you months ago that I wanted to get you on this show because I think that you just have had such an interesting life. You've done so many things. You're so interesting. And what I want you to start with is take me back to graduation. Young Jan, 20-something Jan, with your interior design degree. What did you think then, leaving college, you were going to be doing with your life?
Well, actually, when I was in college, I really had an interest in fashion design.
And fashion design, okay.
And so I went home one weekend, and my parents said, "Jan, you must get a real degree here." Not fashion. What are you going to do? Punch a cash register in a retail store for the rest of your life? And so they were very much into antiques. As a child, when we would travel, my parents would take us into antique shops everywhere, and mother would make us get out of the back seat, of which they had generally they had a cooler between the two, my brother and I, because we were always fighting in the back seat. And they would make us come into the antique shop and name the different periods of furnishings.
Oh, really?
Yes, whether it be Hepplewhite or Chippendale or whatnot.
Yes.
We had to let them know that we were paying attention, and we knew. And most everything was a historical visit to, a mansion or whatnot. So we were very much embedded in that as children. And so I went home and I thought, how am I going to get out of doing something serious in my life? And it hit me, and I said, oh, Mom, Dad, I have decided exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to major in interior design with an emphasis in restoration, and then I'm going to bring I'm going to bring that to Edgefield County, being the home of 10 governors.
Yes.
And so they bought that hook, line, and sinker. So that's really what I thought. At one point, I thought I'd be in New York or Charleston or somewhere else, and I through the years had helped been involved in the peach business and staying with my grandmother at the peach stand, and they were getting older, and I knew that at the end of the day I would hate to miss their last years here. So
family
I stayed.
was important.
Oh, it was very important.
Family was very important.
So I stayed.
Well, Jan, your business ventures over the years have included automobile dealerships, health clubs, real estate, a residential and commercial design firm, and a professional hockey team. You all remember the Augusta Lynx. Your first husband was Greg Hodges, and you had the car dealerships. So you learned a lot about that when you were married to Greg.
Well, not as much as I needed to. Of course, I didn't know the misfortune that we would face. And so I always said that I had gone from a nice hand of fabric to heavy metal when I went to the car dealerships. But overall, it was quite the transition. But just surrounding yourself, Jenny, with people who knew what they were doing. My general managers were good.
Okay.
And then as long as you could manage the managers.
That's it.
And I had a genuine concern for my people. I loved them all. And I cared deeply for my employees.
People said at the time, because it was out on Gordon Highway, one of the dealerships, and you all had the top level was like an apartment.
Yes.
Where you lived.
We lived there the whole time.
And people, all I would hear was, you should see the way it is decorated. People talked about how that looked, how awesome it was. And then, of course, Greg died, so it was so sad. He was so young. And you were tough. You had to be tough and carry on.
Well, we had that chat when he was in the hospital, and he looked at me and said, "You would do that for me." I said, "You better bet. That legacy must live on." So.
Yep. And as a young widow, you did that. You absolutely did. And then happily, you found love again, and you remarried. And tell me how in the world ice hockey came into the picture.
Well, Dan Troutman came to the dealership one day and told me that the hockey team was for sale. And I looked right over at him and said, you know, run on downtown and talk to Robert at his office. He actually enjoys hockey. So he did just that. And so they came back and twisted my arm and said, hey, let's get the hockey team. And so I thought, well, that was another situation for the community. I love our community. Thought it was a positive to have the hockey team there. There were a lot of fans. And I will say this, Jenny, it's a good thing to know the rules when you have a team. Because I would go, and the more I learned, I thought, this is kind of fun. But it was, we were glad that we could, keep it alive as long as we did. And it was a very fun time in our lives.
It was a very fun thing.
And you know what was else?
You know what I would like in the studio? That penalty box. I wish I could just put people in the penalty box on a regular basis.
You know what was nice about it too is that we would bus the soldiers in from Fort Gordon and give them tickets. And that was a real
terrific.
That was a special part of that in giving back.
So all of this business stuff, and you're talking about things right now that may really have a lot of men, and here you are as a woman owner, a woman leader. What have you found in terms of challenges of being in a minority, in a woman in a male-dominated field?
Well, I think as long as you don't try to wear the pants and you don't try to act too smart, they appreciate you. And if you know your place, it's like I would tell the girls at the dealership, go on out there and sell those cars or go get an F&I and, finish up that paperwork. And because they would complain about the guys sometimes, and I go, boys will be boys. And so you just kind of have to know your place, but you have to have the confidence to recognize your position, their position, and exactly how you should move forward to get things done together.
And it is, and a lot of times, how you want to get things done. You know what the end goal is, and maybe you have to be a little bit smarter to figure out what you have to do to make it turn out the way you want it to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to continue talking with Jan in just a few minutes. We have a quick break. She also has some experience with cutting horses, and we're going to talk about that right after this break. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking today with Jan Hodges Burch, who is the most well-rounded person. She's a businesswoman, community volunteer, philanthropist, accredited flower show judge, and an award-winning cutting horse competitor. And one thing that's really cool, Jan, is a picture that you've shared with us. We're going to show it to our viewers. One of the horses that you ride, I believe, MC Shade?
Yes.
And MC Shade has like a famous daddy?
Yes, he most certainly does. Metallic Cat is his daddy, and if those of you who have watched Yellowstone will know that he was featured on Yellowstone, and he was the very important horse that they brought in. I believe it was in season 4 or 5. I'm not sure which, but that is his father.
But still, if we're playing the game 6 degrees, you are real close to Kevin Costner. That's how I would look at it. You are close to Kevin Costner. I love it. Well, Jan, it's so funny to think about the many different boards that you've served on, and you've been involved with the USC Aiken Partnership, Women in Philanthropy, Augusta Symphony, Augusta Ballet, on and on and on. But I really love the flowers. And not only are you a flower show judge, but you're also serving in a garden club capacity for the state, is that right?
For the Garden Club of South Carolina, yes.
Yeah. So what do you do for that?
Well, I'm the second vice president, and I plan the convention, the state convention, which is held on every odd year. And of course, any event that we have, that's kind of my position at this point in time.
Sure.
But my mother is first vice president, and we have thoroughly enjoyed traveling together. We just got back from the Chelsea Flower Show in England.
Lovely.
And
Lovely.
That was fun. And we've made a lot of nice friends, and I enjoy those ladies. They're older and they laugh at my jokes and they think I'm cute.
Yeah,
So that's always helpful.
Love that. And the flower shows in Great Britain are amazing.
Yes, they are.
I took botany in Great Britain in London when I was a college student.
Oh, wow.
And so I saw a lot of those flower shows and international flower shows, and they're very spectacular.
They really, their flowers grow very large, Jenny.
They do.
I mean, larger than ours.
They have that really good, really moist
soil.
moist
Yes,
environment there. Well, another great love for you and your husband, Robert, is time with the grandkids.
Yes.
And you have a special camp. Tell me about camp.
Well, we have Gigi Jannie, Aunt Jannie camp is what we have. And it's always a few days in the summer, and all the nieces and nephews and also all the grandchildren, of course, come.
Yes.
And there are 10 grandchildren now between Robert's kids and
Wow.
Greg's children.
Wow.
And so anyway, we have a big time. We go up to Trenton to my parents' home there,
Yeah.
and they have a pool and they have the horses up there to ride. One year,
And they have the peaches?
And they have the peaches, exactly, blueberries, everything you can
Yeah.
imagine. And one day, I mean, we have Bible study every day, and then crafts to follow that, and then we have one day of a historic visit. We've been to the Biltmore Home, we've been to Savannah, we've been to Augusta, Aiken, Edgefield, you know, just all around, and toured, and so they would have some learning experience as well. But I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but the Kemp boys and the Hewitt girl from Edgefield County, well, Trenton and Edgefield, the three of them, were the champions, the shag champions for junior shag competition.
Oh, really?
Nationally, yes.
Wow.
And so last year, the year before, I can't remember which, they came in and taught them how to shag. And so we have etiquette class and cooking class, and you know what they like the best? They love the etiquette class. I cannot believe it.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
they want to enter the room and feel important and know how to stand.
Kind of like with social.
Yes.
When kids take social.
Yes,
And they love that year.
And then we have a
Bananas.
dining tutorial around my mother's dining room table with all the crystal and china. So it has been fun. They'll say to me, "Oh, please, let's have this for a full week." I'm thinking I'll be dead.
Okay,
But it's fun.
note to self, sign up for camp at Jan's house next summer. I want to come.
Come
what
on.
a great event. Jan
Thank you.
Hodges Burch, you are a delightful woman, and thank you for spending time with us and just sort of telling us some of the things you have going on in your life. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Jenny. It's been a pleasure.